Welcome to Learning English with Captain Binoy Varakil, Assistant Professor, Department of English, St. Joseph's College, Devgiri, Calicut, Kerala. We learn about the consonants of received pronunciation, International Phonetic Alphabet. And we are in the lecture series on the classification of consonants based on the manner of articulation. In the previous lecture, we studied about the first three classification of consonants based on the manner of articulation. That is, we are sure about the plosive consonants or the stops. Having studied the plosives or the stop consonants, we studied about the affricate sounds. And we know that there are just two affricate sounds. Those are the sounds in the words chill and joy, ch and j. And we also studied about the fricative sounds. And we know that there are 9 fricative sounds in English consonants. And the fricative sounds, as we know, are produced by the closure of the active articulator and the passive articulator. And of course, in fact, there is no closure, but they come very close to each other, and a narrow gap is formed between about to, in fact, the articulators come very close to each other, as in the case of the plosives and the affricates, but no contact between the active articulator and the passive articulator. A narrow gap is formed and air is let out with friction, and we have 9 fricative sounds in English, and we studied all that in the previous lecture, and we know that they are, the 9 fricative sounds are s, z, f, r, s, r, h. Okay, and now we move on to the discussion of yet another topic, that is, of course, yet another classification of consonants based on the manner of articulation, and they are known as trill or roll. Let us understand what trill or roll are. The trill or the roll are in fact the same sound. That is, sometimes you come across a term like the post-alveolar frictionless continuant. And the post-alveolar frictionless continuant is also known as trill or roll. Trill or roll. And know that a trill or a roll is a consonant sound in the articulation of which the active articulator and the passive articulator are brought into contact with each other, and the sound is produced by a series of tapping on the roof of the mouth, that is, of course, the alveolar ridge. And such a sound is known as a trill or a roll. For example, if we look at the word R-A-N or R-A-T, we have two words like rat, number 1, ran. Okay, and look at that initial sound in both the words, rat and ran. You can see that that is produced with a series of tapping on the alveolar ridge or the teeth ridge or the roof of the mouth, and such sounds produced with a series of tapping or touching on the alveolar ridge are known as the trill or roll, and they are the sounds we have in ran, rat, river, driver. That is the r sound in all these words. So such a sound, such an which is articulated with a series of tapping against the roof of the mouth or the alveolar ridge are known as trill or rolled. In fact, they are also known as rolled R. We have to understand. So, trill is one term for that. Roll is another term for that. Similarly, we have also another term that is of course rolled R. Rolled R. Okay, rolled because the tongue is just rolling against, tapping against the alveolar ridge a number of times. That is of course trill or roll. And now sometimes in certain words this particular post-alveolar frictionless continuant, that is of course the we have, that one is not articulated with all these series of contact against the alveolar ridge or teeth. There is just a single tapping. There is just a single tapping or a single touching or contact against the alveolar ridge. And such a post-alveolar frictionless continuant or R is what is known as a tap or a flap. That's what we have to understand. Okay, a post-alveolar frictionless continuant which is articulated with a single tap against the roof of the mouth or alveolar ridge is known as a tap or a flap. Okay, say for example, look at the word very, 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 sorry, sorry, very, sorry. Just single tapping. So, such post-alveolar frictionless continuants or R, which is articulated with a single tapping on the alveolar ridge is known as a tap or a flap. So now it's very clear to you, you know the distinction between a trill or a roll and a tap or a flap. What is it? I'm just summing up. So based on the manner of articulation, we have 8 types of consonants: the plosives, the affricates, the fricatives, the trill or the roll, and we are now learning about the trill or the roll, and we know that a trill or a roll is the sound which is articulated with a series of tapping against the roof of the mouth, that is of course the alveolar ridge. And we have examples like in ran, ran, yeah, look at that, ran, rat, river, driver, a series of tapping. Certain occasions, this particular post-alveolar frictionless sound, the is articulated with a single tapping, and such a sound is known as a tap or a flap. Example, very and sorry. Okay, this is what we have to remember about the trill or the roll. The trill or the roll is also known as flap R, or rather is also known as rolled R. Yeah, that's rolled R. Rolled R, a number of rolling or tapping against the roof of the mouth. Now we have to understand 2 more concepts related to the trill or the roll or the We have 2 types of that is of course one certain occasion, say for example, the is audible and sometimes it is not audible. That's what we have to remember. And this particular which is audible, okay, is known as linking What is it known as? It is known as linking And now we have to understand what is in fact a linking Certain contexts we have the post-alveolar frictionless continuant coming at the end of a word. Say for example, we have the word car, okay, car, and if the next word begin with a vowel sound, this particular will be audible, and that audible is known as, it is, say for example, we have a phrase like car of Alex, or car of somebody, car of. Here you have of course the O sound, here you have the and now next to the is the vowel sound, and because of the proximity of the vowel, this is audible, and such an audible is known as linking So exam point of view, we may have to remember what we mean by linking And linking another example is the driver of my car. And the driver of my car. Look at the example. The driver of my car. Okay. This particular is audible, and driver is audible because the next word begins with a vowel, and this particular is known as a linking But the last the driver of my car, it is not car nor it is just the driver of my car. That is inaudible, and it is because the ending of the word, the sentence ends there, and it is not audible. Okay, and that is linking R. Now we have one more concept related to the trill or the roll, and that is what is known as the intrusive R, the intrusive R, or the intrusive R. What is the intrusive is in fact a question for examination. Give an example for linking very easy to understand, and which is audible. Give an example for intrusive okay, you must have examples for that. Let's understand what is the concept of the intrusive R. This particular concept of the intrusive R is a phenomena which is often seen in the case of the native speakers, or it is seen in the case of speakers of English language who are quite familiar with the English language, or rather who are staying with the English people for a long time, who are quite flexible in almost all the usages of the English language. And in the speech of the native speakers, or such people who are very much used to the use of English or the usage of English, we will come across certain which is not there in reality. Say for example, these people, when they say something of like India, okay, we have India and Pakistan, alright. In this particular context, India and Pakistan, we have one word ending with a vowel sound, another word beginning with a vowel sound. So in this context of one word ending in a vowel sound and another word beginning with a vowel sound, native speakers have a tendency to intrude or fix or bring in an and that which is just introduced into word boundaries ending in vowel sounds is what is known as intrusive R. And they would be speaking something like India and Pakistan, India and Pakistan, Asia and America, Asia and Africa. So look at that, India and Pakistan, Asia and Africa, Asia. Alright, so such type of the introduction of an R is what is known as intrusive R, and there is an R which is audible, and that audible R is audible just because of the beginning of the next word with a vowel sound. So now we have studied everything about the post-alveolar frictionless continuant, that is the sound in received pronunciation. So the post-alveolar frictionless continuant is known as trill or roll, number one. It is also known as a rolled R, number two. It is also known as a tap or a flap. Exam point of view, distinguish between a trill and a tap. Very easy to understand. The trill or roll is articulated with a series of tapping against the alveolar ridge, and you say ran, rat, river. But the tap is articulated with a single tapping against the alveolar ridge. Example, very, sorry. Alright, with that we wind up our discussion of the trill or the roll, and we come to the next classification of consonant based on the manner of articulation That is, of course, the lateral sound. Lateral sound. So before learning about the lateral sound, let us just review whatever we studied so far. So far we have seen 4 classifications of consonants based on the manner of articulation: the plosives, the affricates, the fricatives, and now the trill. Now we are going to learn the lateral sounds. What are the lateral sounds? Question for examination, and anyone who is mastering in the English language must have a clear idea of the lateral sounds. I'll give you a definition of the lateral sound right now. So know that the lateral sounds are sounds which are produced by the tongue. The tongue is lifted to the roof of the mouth, and the tongue is the center of the tongue, of course, we have the sound is the sound, and when you say the sound the tip and the front of the tongue is held against the teeth ridge. That is, of course, the hard palate, and the air is let out through the sides of the tongue, and you say So a lateral sound is produced with the oral passage blockaded, or rather blocked at the center of the mouth cavity, and the air escaping through the sides of the tongue, and we have the sound in that is the sound of the lateral sound. Say we have the sound in the words like lake, little, least, less, love, love letter, right? So very easy to understand. A lateral sound is produced with the oral passage blocked at the center, and the air escaping to the sides of the tongue. Okay, and now we are just learning little more about the lateral sounds. In the production of the lateral sounds, the tip of the tongue is raised to the alveolar ridge, blocking the oral passage at the center. The sides of the tongue are lowered, allowing the air to pass through the sides freely without any blockage. That is the lateral sound. And now we have to understand 2 more concepts related to the lateral sounds, and these 2 concepts are what is known as, number 1, the clear L, and number 2, the dark L. Okay, so exam point of view, a student must be familiar with these 2 concepts. What is dark L? What is clear L? So 2 important concepts related to the lateral sound is, one is clear L and the other is dark L. Give examples for clear L, or rather give an example for dark L. So these lateral sounds sometimes are articulated with more fronting of the tongue, as in the case of leave. Okay, leave. In the case of leave, right, look at that, leave. When you say leave, we have the long the E sound, leave. Okay, the tongue is leave, right, is fronted more than in the case of fell. Look at this one, we have fell, or even you have for, fell, tell, alright. And you will understand that there is some difference between the L sound, the lateral sound in leave, and the lateral sound in fell or tell or bell. Okay, look at the one bell. In all this we can see fell, tell, bell. The lateral is different, and this particular lateral sound, which is immediately followed by a vowel sound like in leave, little, least, let, etc. Such lateral sounds are articulated with more fronting, and we can say that they are clear L. Comparatively, when you compare leave and fell, you understand that leave is more clearer, or rather more clear, or rather clearer okay, clearer than the l in fell, bell, or even tell. So such a lateral sound which is immediately followed by a vowel sound is known as a clear L, and such a lateral sound which comes after a vowel sound like in fell, okay, is known as a dark L. So very easy to understand. We know what a clear L is. We know what a dark L is. A clear L is a lateral which is immediately followed by a vowel. A dark L is a lateral sound which is after a vowel sound. Okay, with that we can come to the end of our discussion of the lateral sounds. Okay, we know everything about the lateral sound. Important, the tongue is, the tip and the front of the tongue is against the alveolar ridge, or rather the roof of the mouth, air escaping through the sides, and we have lateral sounds, and we have of course clear L like in leave, dark L like in fell. And now we have to learn about the nasal sounds. Okay, the nasal sounds we will discuss in the next lecture. So remember whatever we studied so far. We have 6 plosive sounds, 2 affricate sounds, 9 fricative sounds, and of course the trill or the roll, and the lateral. Now next lecture we will be discussing the nasal consonants. So remember all these things, and of course learn about the fricatives, the affricates, the lateral, the trill and the troll, and of course the plosives in a very detailed way, and be sure about all this. Thank you so much for listening. May God bless you.